The mysterious arrival. Ethan Cole's life in the quiet settlement of Red Horizon, deep in the New Nevada colony, was anything but extraordinary. His days were spent repairing the worn and outdated machinery that kept the settlement running. A mechanic by trade and tradition. Ethan's nights, however, offered a reprieve. Sitting on his rickety porch with a mug of cheap whiskey in hand, he'd gaze up at the endless stars, dreaming of the galaxies beyond his reach. Tonight, like every other night, he wiped his grease-streaked hands on a rag as he prepared to close up his workshop. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly, casting flickering shadows over the tools scattered across his workbench. A quick glance at the clock revealed the time. 11:45 p.m., another long, uneventful day. Just as Ethan reached for the switch to douse the lights, a brilliant flash lit up the workshop like a supernova. He froze, his hand suspended midair as the light filled the room with an unearthly brilliance. The faint hum of the lights was drowned out by a low, resonating frequency that seemed to vibrate in his very bones. "What the hell?" Ethan muttered, his heart pounding. He turned to the window and pushed aside the dusty curtain. His jaw dropped. Outside, in the clearing behind his workshop, a sleek, silver vessel was descending from the sky. The ship looked almost liquid in form, its surface shimmering and shifting in the moonlight. It moved with a grace that defied everything Ethan knew about physics, as though gravity itself bent to its will. The ship landed softly, the hum growing quieter as its glowing undercarriage dimmed. The air around it shimmered, charged with energy. Ethan stepped back from the window, his mind racing. This wasn't a mining transport or a government drone. It was something else entirely. Gathering his courage, Ethan grabbed a wrench from the workbench. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it made him feel slightly less vulnerable. He stepped cautiously outside, the cool night air sharp against his skin. The ship's lights bathed the clearing in an eerie glow, casting long, distorted shadows across the gravel. A panel on the ship's hull slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a doorway filled with pulsating blue light. A ramp extended fluidly to the ground, its seamless motion captivating. Ethan's grip on the wrench tightened as three figures emerged from the ship. They were like nothing he'd ever seen. The figures stepped into the moonlight, their features becoming clear. They were women, tall, elegant, and otherworldly. Their skin shimmered with a soft blue iridescence, glowing faintly as if kissed by starlight. Their movements were impossibly smooth, almost as though they were gliding rather than walking. Their eyes, large and almond-shaped, emitted a gentle light that seemed to pierce right through Ethan. The leader of the group stepped forward. She was regal, her presence commanding yet calm. Intricate silver markings adorned her skin, glowing faintly in the ambient light. She wore a suit of flowing, metallic material that shifted and adapted to her movements, seeming almost alive. "Are you the mechanic?" she asked, her voice melodic and resonant. The sound seemed to echo in the still night, wrapping around Ethan like a gentle breeze. Ethan stared, the wrench slipping from his hand to the ground. Yeah. I'm Ethan Cole," he said, his voice uneven. What's going on here?" "Our ship has malfunctioned," the leader replied, gesturing toward the sleek vessel behind her. "We were traveling to a critical diplomatic summit when our energy core destabilized. We require your assistance to repair it." Ethan's mind raced. This had to be a dream. A bizarre, impossible dream. The ship, the women, their glowing skin, none of it made sense. But the urgency in her voice was undeniable. They were stranded, and they had come to him. "Me?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You want me to fix that?" The leader nodded, her glowing eyes steady. "You are the only mechanic in this region. Your tools and skills will suffice." Ethan hesitated. The ship was beyond anything he'd ever encountered, far more advanced than the rusty vehicles and machinery he worked on daily. But the way the woman spoke, the quiet confidence in her tone, stirred something in him. This was his chance to touch the stars, to become part of the world he had only dreamed about. "All right," he said, his voice firmer now. He grabbed his toolbox and took a step toward the ship. "I'll give it my best shot." As Ethan approached, the other two women stepped aside, their movements fluid and graceful. The leader followed closely, her presence both reassuring and intimidating. The interior of the ship was unlike anything Ethan had imagined. The walls were smooth and seamless, glowing faintly with pulsating patterns. Strange glyphs hovered in the air, shifting and rearranging as though alive. "This is the energy core," the leader said, leading him into the central chamber. In the middle of the room stood a crystalline structure, its jagged edges glowing erratically. Pulses of unstable energy crackled along its surface, sending vibrations through the ship. Ethan swallowed hard, the sheer alienness of it all threatening to overwhelm him. But then he took a deep breath, grounding himself. He might not understand this technology, but a machine was a machine, and fixing machines was what he did best. "All right," he said, kneeling by the core and opening his toolbox. "Let's see what we're dealing with here." Behind him, the leader and her companions watched in silence, their glowing eyes fixed on his every move. Ethan could feel the weight of their gaze, the pressure of their expectations, but instead of intimidating him, it fueled his determination. For the first time in his life, Ethan Cole was at the center of something extraordinary, and he wasn't about to let this moment slip through his fingers. An impossible repair. The interior of the alien ship was like stepping into a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. The walls glowed with shifting light patterns, and strange symbols floated in the air, rearranging themselves in hypnotic sequences. The soft hum of the ship seemed to resonate deep within Ethan Cole's chest, almost like it was alive. He knelt before the crystalline energy core, which pulsed erratically, casting sharp shadows across the room. "This core is unstable," Ethan muttered, mostly to himself. Sparks of energy crackled along its surface, lighting up the chamber with every pulse. "If this keeps up, it's going to blow." The leader of the alien women, who had introduced herself as Commander Lyra, watched him intently. Her silver-marked skin glimmered faintly in the core's unstable light. "Can you stabilize it?" she asked, her voice calm yet laced with urgency. Ethan ran his hands through his hair, trying to ignore the beads of sweat forming on his brow. "I've never seen anything like this before," he admitted. "But if I can figure out how the energy flows through these conduits," he gestured to the glowing pathways extending from the core to the walls, "I might be able to reroute the power and stabilize it. No promises, though." Commander Lyra tilted her head, her glowing eyes studying him. "You're remarkably calm for someone facing unfamiliar technology." Ethan chuckled nervously, pulling out a diagnostic tool from his toolbox. "This is my job. Machines are machines. Doesn't matter if they're from Earth or wherever you're from. The principles can't be too different." As he scanned the core, the readings on his device scrambled, the numbers and symbols incomprehensible. Frustration prickled at the edges of Ethan's focus, but he forced himself to think clearly. The ship hummed louder, as if it were reacting to his presence. For a moment, he felt an odd connection, like the ship was trying to communicate. The diagnostic tool beeped erratically, and Ethan frowned. "There's a flux in the energy flow. It's jumping between conduits instead of following a stable path. That's why everything's out of whack." He turned to Lyra. "Does this ship have a manual? Or a control panel? Something to help me understand the layout?" Commander Lyra exchanged a glance with her companions, then turned back to him. "Our ships are semi-sentient. They adapt to the needs of their users. It's likely responding to you now." "Responding to me?" Ethan blinked, glancing around the room. As if on cue, the floating symbols around the core began to shift, aligning themselves into patterns that vaguely resembled schematics. Ethan's eyes widened. "Okay, that's creepy, but helpful." He reached out tentatively, his fingers brushing one of the glowing symbols. It rippled like water, projecting a holographic diagram of the core and its conduits. Ethan's mind raced as he pieced together the design. The energy wasn't flowing properly because one of the main conduits was damaged, likely during whatever incident had stranded the ship. "I think I can bypass the damaged conduit," Ethan said, his confidence growing. "But I'll need to redirect the energy through these secondary pathways. It's risky. If I mess this up, the whole system could overload." Lyra stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "Do what you must. We trust you." Ethan swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling heavily on his shoulders. He reached into his toolbox, pulling out a series of small clamps and wiring adapters. The tools looked laughably primitive compared to the sleek, advanced systems of the ship, but they were all he had. As he worked, sweat dripped down his temple. The core vibrated violently, each unstable pulse threatening to disrupt his delicate adjustments. His hand shook, but he forced himself to stay steady. The ship seemed to sense his intent, its hum shifting to a lower, steadier frequency. It was almost reassuring, like a heartbeat slowing to calm him. One by one, Ethan rerouted the conduits, watching as the unstable energy began to stabilize. The core's pulses became less erratic, the sparks diminishing. He glanced at his diagnostic tool. The readings were stabilizing. But it wasn't perfect yet. "Almost there," he muttered, tightening the last clamp. "Just need to seal the connections." A sudden jolt rocked the ship, throwing Ethan off balance. The core flared brightly, its energy spiking dangerously high. Ethan cursed under his breath, scrambling back to the panel. "Not now. You don't. Come on, stay with me." Lyra stepped closer, her calm demeanor breaking for the first time. "What's happening?" "The energy's spiking," Ethan replied, his voice strained. "Something's causing feedback in the system. If I don't fix it now, this whole thing is going to blow." He took a deep breath, his mind racing. There was one last conduit he hadn't rerouted yet, but it was heavily damaged. Redirecting power through it was a gamble. It could stabilize the core, or it could send the whole system into meltdown. "I need to take a chance," Ethan said, glancing at Lyra. "This might not work." Lyra nodded, her expression firm. "We believe in you, Ethan Cole." Her words bolstered him. With a quick adjustment, Ethan rerouted the remaining power through the damaged conduit. For a moment, the core flared again, its light blinding. Ethan shielded his eyes, bracing for an explosion. But instead, the light softened. The vibrations stopped. The core pulsed with a steady, rhythmic glow, its energy now flowing smoothly through the conduits. The ship's hum settled into a calm, soothing tone. Ethan exhaled deeply, wiping sweat from his brow. "There. That should do it." Lyra stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. Her touch was cool, almost electric, and Ethan felt a strange wave of calm wash over him. "You've done more than repair our ship," she said, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. "You've earned our respect." Ethan managed a tired smile. "Just doing my job." As the other two women approached, their expressions no longer wary but filled with quiet admiration, Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. For the first time in his life, he had done something extraordinary. Little did he know, this was just the beginning. The gift and the revelation. Ethan leaned against the workshop wall, catching his breath. His hands were still trembling from the intensity of the repair, but a deep sense of accomplishments settled over him. The alien ship hummed softly now, its systems stable and its interior bathed in a calming blue light. For a moment, the silence felt almost sacred. Commander Lyra approached him, her gaze softening. In her hands was a sleek metallic bracelet, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and ripple like liquid. "This," she began, holding it out to him, "is more than a token of gratitude. It is a symbol of trust, a connection between our worlds." Ethan hesitated, staring at the bracelet. "I don't know what to say." "You've already said enough through your actions," Lyra replied, her tone resolute. She reached for his hand and gently placed the bracelet on his wrist. It adjusted instantly, wrapping around his arm with a perfect fit. The surface glowed faintly, sending a warm, tingling sensation through his skin. "What is it?" Ethan asked, marveling at the strange device. "It's an interface," Lyra explained. "It will allow you to understand our technology and interact with it on a deeper level. The bracelet contains an eye, one that will learn from you as much as you will learn from it." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You're giving me alien technology, just like that." Lyra smiled faintly. "You've proven your resourcefulness and ingenuity. We believe you will use it wisely." As Ethan turned the bracelet over in his hands, the glyphs on its surface glowed faintly, and a soft feminine voice echoed in his mind. "Hello, Ethan Cole. I am Aura, your assistant." Ethan nearly jumped. "It talks." Lyra chuckled. "It communicates. Aura will guide you, help you understand our systems, and adapt to your unique way of thinking." The other two alien women stepped forward, one of them speaking for the first time. Her voice was softer but carried a note of urgency. "Commander, we mustn't delay. The summit awaits, and we've already lost precious time." Lyra nodded before turning back to Ethan. "You've stabilized our ship, but the journey ahead remains perilous. Our diplomatic mission is critical, not just for our people, but for the stability of the galaxy. There are factions that would see it fail." Ethan's curiosity sparked. "Factions? You mean, like hostile aliens?" Lyra's expression darkened slightly. "Yes, rogue groups that oppose peace and unity. They've sabotaged ships like ours before, and their influence grows stronger. If we don't reach the summit on time..." She trailed off, the weight of her words unspoken but clear. Ethan shifted uneasily. "So, you're asking me to come along for the ride?" Lyra met his gaze. "Not asking. Inviting. Your skills could prove invaluable, and your perspective as an outsider may offer insights we lack." Ethan hesitated. New Nevada might have been dusty and uneventful, but it was home. Leaving it behind felt like stepping into an abyss, and yet, how could he ignore the chance to see the stars up close, to touch the very edges of the universe? Aura's voice chimed in his mind, gentle yet firm. "The opportunity to explore and learn awaits, Ethan Cole. Will you accept it?" He exhaled deeply, nodding. "Okay, I'll come. But don't blame me if I end up more trouble than I'm worth." Lyra's lips curved into a small smile. "We'll take that risk." The journey begins. The ship roared to life, its once unstable systems now running smoothly under Ethan's repairs. As they ascended, Ethan watched through the viewport as New Nevada grew smaller and smaller, its dusty terrain fading into the endless black of space. His heart raced, a mix of excitement and fear coursing through him. Inside the ship, Aura guided Ethan through a quick overview of its systems. Holographic interfaces sprang to life around him, displaying star charts, navigation routes, and energy readings. The technology felt impossibly advanced, yet the bracelet's AI made it intuitive, as though the systems were adapting to his thought process. Commander Lyra and her team explained more about their mission. They were envoys of the Saren Dominion, a peaceful coalition seeking to broker a truce between warring factions. The summit on Mars was a last-ditch effort to prevent galactic conflict, but the rogue faction Lyra had mentioned, known as the Acheron Syndicate, was determined to sabotage it. "We've already faced one attempt to stop us," Lyra said grimly. "That's why our energy core was sabotage. They'll likely strike again." Ethan frowned. "And you think I can help?" "You already have," Lyra replied. "Your perspective is different. That makes you unpredictable and valuable." As the ship traveled through hyperspace, Ethan found himself drawn to the stars outside. They streaked past in dazzling trails of light, a mesmerizing dance of colors he had only dreamed of. For the first time in his life, he felt truly alive, as though the universe had opened its arms to him. But his reverie was short-lived. The ship's alarms blared suddenly, jolting everyone to attention. Aura's voice filled Ethan's mind. "Warning. Incoming vessels detected. Hostile signatures identified. Lyra's expression hardened. The Syndicate. Ethan's heart raced as he glanced at the holographic display. 3 enemy ships were closing in fast, their weapons systems powering up. He turned to Lyra. "What do we do?" Lyra's calm demeanor didn't waver. "We fight." She turned to one of her crew. "Prepare the ship's defenses. And Ethan." She paused, meeting his gaze. "Stay close. This is far from over." As the alien ship veered sharply, preparing for its first skirmish, Ethan braced himself. His journey into the stars was turning out to be far more dangerous and thrilling than he'd ever imagined. Battle among the stars. The alien ship shuddered as it emerged from hyperspace, plunging into the middle of a hostile ambush. Ethan stumbled, grabbing onto the nearest railing to steady himself. The holographic display flared to life, showing 3 enemy ships encircling them, their sleek designs bristling with weaponry. Commander Lyra stood firm, her glowing eyes scanning the battlefield with a calm intensity. "Shields up. Evasive maneuvers," she commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. The 2 other Siren women moved with practiced precision, their hands gliding over glowing panels to carry out her orders. Ethan's heart pounded as he stared at the display. The enemy ships, belonging to the Icaran Syndicate, as Lyra had called them, moved with deadly coordination, firing bursts of energy that streaked across the void. The Siren ship's shields absorbed the first barrage, but the impact sent tremors through the entire vessel. "What can I do?" Ethan asked, his voice tinged with panic. Lyra turned to him, her expression steady despite the chaos. "Our array will guide you. There's a secondary console over there. Assist with system diagnostics and reroute power where needed." Ethan rushed to the console, the bracelet on his wrist glowing brighter as he approached. Aura's voice filled his mind. "Accessing ship systems. Priority tasks. Reinforce shield integrity and reroute energy to propulsion for evasive maneuvers." The holographic interface in front of him shifted, displaying a complex web of energy conduits and shield generators. "All right, Aura," Ethan muttered, his hands moving instinctively over the controls. "Let's see what you've got." As the Syndicate ships closed in, Ethan worked furiously to stabilize the Siren vessel. The ship's shields were taking heavy damage, their energy output fluctuating dangerously. Ethan rerouted power from non-essential systems, bolstering the defenses just as another barrage of enemy fire struck. The ship's thrusters roared to life, propelling it into a sharp dive that sent Ethan sprawling against the console. "Could have warned me about that," he grumbled, earning a faint chuckle from Aura. Meanwhile, Lyra coordinated the counterattack. "Return fire on their flanking vessels," she ordered. "Target their engines to slow them down." One of the Syndicate ships veered sharply as a burst of Siren energy weapons struck its rear thrusters, sending it spiraling away. But the remaining 2 ships pressed the assault, their weapons glowing ominously. "They're charging something big," Ethan shouted, pointing at the display. A massive surge of energy was building in one of the enemy vessels, its cannon aimed directly at them. Lyra's gaze narrowed. "Evasive maneuvers won't be enough. We need to disable that cannon." Ethan's mind raced. The Siren ship's weapons weren't powerful enough to penetrate the Syndicate ship's shields in time. But then, an idea struck him. A risky, desperate idea. "What if we overload their systems?" He blurted. "If we can send a feedback loop through their targeting system, it could knock out their cannon before they fire." Lyra tilted her head, considering his suggestion. "Can it be done?" "With your tech? Maybe. But I'll need to interface directly with their targeting array, and that means we'll have to get close." A faint smile touched Lyra's lips. "Bold. I like it." She turned to her crew. "Adjust course to intercept the lead vessel. Prepare for close combat." As the Siren ship accelerated toward the enemy, Ethan's hands flew over the console, guided by Aora's precise instructions. The ship's systems sensed with his bracelet, amplifying his commands and providing real-time feedback. It was like nothing he'd ever experienced, an almost symbiotic connection between man and machine. The enemy vessel loomed closer, its cannon glowing with lethal energy. Ethan's pulse quickened as he accessed their targeting system, his screen filling with layers of encrypted code. "Aore. I need a way in. Now." "Decrypting. Access granted," Aore replied, her voice calm despite the tension. Ethan bypassed the enemy's firewalls, sending a surge of energy directly into their targeting array. Sparks erupted across their ship's surface as the feedback loop overloaded their systems. The massive cannon flickered, its energy dissipating harmlessly into space. "They're disabled," Ethan shouted, a mix of relief and exhilaration in his voice. Lyra's crew didn't hesitate. Seizing the opening, they fired a concentrated burst at the Syndicate ship's engines, leaving it dead in the water. The remaining enemy ship, seeing its allies defeated, retreated into hyperspace. The Siren ship settled into a steady hum, the battle finally over. Ethan slumped against the console, his heart still racing. "Is it always like this with you guys?" he asked, half joking. Lyra approached, a glimmer of amusement in her glowing eyes. "Not always, but when it is, we prevail. Thanks to you." This time was no exception. A glimpse of trust. As the crew worked to assess the damage and make repairs, Ethan stood by the viewport, staring out at the stars. The vastness of space felt different now, more dangerous, but also more alive. He couldn't help but feel a strange thrill, knowing he had played a part in their victory. Lyra joined him, her expression softer than before. "You took a great risk back there." Ethan shrugged, a faint grin tugging at his lips. "Guess I'm a fan of high-stakes problem-solving." "You have courage," Lyra said, her voice quiet but firm. "And a mind that adapts quickly. That's rare, even among my people." Ethan looked at her, sensing the unspoken weight behind her words. "You're not just saying that to butter me up, are you?" She chuckled softly. "No, Ethan Cole. It's the truth." As they stood in silence, the stars stretching infinitely before them, Ethan realized something. For all his years of dreaming about the stars, he had never truly felt connected to them. Until now. And he had a feeling this was only the beginning. A world of wonders. After the chaos of the battle, the Siren ship continued its journey, its systems holding steady thanks to Ethan's quick thinking and the crew's skill. The journey gave Ethan a chance to explore the ship more deeply, guided by Aura and occasionally by Commander Lyra herself. Each corner of the vessel revealed new marvels, self-healing walls, an organic waste recycling system that converted waste into energy, and holographic archives detailing Siren history. But nothing could have prepared Ethan for what lay ahead. "We're approaching Sirana," Lyra announced, her voice laced with subtle pride. Ethan moved to the viewport, his breath catching as the ship emerged from hyperspace. Before him was Sirana, the Siren's homeworld. It was a planet of breathtaking beauty, dominated by towering crystalline cities that sparkled like diamonds under the light of twin suns. Rivers of luminescent liquid snaked through the landscape, their glow visible even from orbit. "Welcome to Sirana," Lyra said, standing beside him. Her voice was calm, but there was a hint of satisfaction in her tone. "Our home." Ethan stared in awe. "It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it." The ship began its descent, weaving through the crystalline spires of the capital city. The air seemed alive with energy, shimmering faintly as the ship passed. Floating platforms carried sirens between buildings, their elegant forms moving with the same grace Ethan had seen in Lyra and her crew. As they landed on a sleek platform overlooking the city, Ethan's nerves flared. He wasn't sure what to expect from the sirens. Would they see him as a curiosity, or worse, a threat? Meeting the council. Ethan's first steps onto Sirana's surface were met with stares. Siren citizens paused, their glowing eyes fixed on him with a mix of curiosity and wariness. Their whispered conversations in a language Ethan couldn't understand made him feel out of place. But Lyra walked confidently beside him, her presence a silent reassurance. They entered a grand hall, its interior a symphony of light and sound. The walls seemed to sing, their crystalline surfaces resonating with a faint melody. At the center of the chamber stood the Siren Council, a group of elder sirens, their markings more intricate and their auras brighter than any Ethan had seen. One of the counselors, an imposing figure with golden markings, stepped forward. "Commander Lyra," he said, his tone formal. "You return, but not without complication." Lyra inclined her head. "Counselor Varys, the mission faced sabotage from the Syndicate. Were it not for Ethan Cole's ingenuity, our ship would not have survived." The counselor's gaze shifted to Ethan, his glowing eyes narrowing. "A human. And you entrusted him with Siran technology." Lyra stood tall. He proved himself more than capable. His quick thinking and resourcefulness saved not only our ship but potentially our mission. Ethan cleared his throat, feeling the weight of their stares. "Hi. I'm Ethan. Nice to meet you, all." The counselors murmured among themselves, their voices carrying a melodic quality. Finally, Varys raised a hand, silencing the chamber. "Human ingenuity is well known, though often reckless. Still, it seems your actions warrant acknowledgement." Another counselor, a woman with markings that glowed faintly green, stepped forward. "We are facing a dire situation," she said. "Our planet's energy grid has been destabilizing for months. We suspect Syndicate interference, but the cause eludes us. If it fails completely, Sirana's ecosystem will collapse." Ethan frowned, his curiosity piqued. "And you want me to fix it?" Lyra turned to him, her expression firm. "Your perspective might uncover something we've missed. The Council believes your ability to adapt to unfamiliar technology could be the key." Ethan hesitated. The stakes were higher than anything he had ever faced. But then he glanced at the bracelet on his wrist, its soft glow a reminder of his growing connection to this world. He nodded. "I'll do what I can." Into the core. The Council led Ethan and Lyra to the city's energy core, located deep beneath the crystalline surface. The journey through the underground tunnels revealed an entirely new side of Sirana, a glowing network of conduits that pulsed like veins, carrying energy to every corner of the planet. When they reached the core chamber, Ethan stopped in his tracks. The structure was massive, a swirling vortex of light and energy, suspended in the center of a cavernous space. Conduits extended from the core like roots, their surfaces crackling with unstable energy. "This is incredible," Ethan murmured, stepping closer. Lyra gestured to the core. "The Syndicate's sabotage left it unstable. We've made repairs, but the instability persists." Ethan activated the bracelet, and Aura's voice filled his mind. "Analyzing core structure. Energy flow irregularities detected. Primary conduits show signs of tampering." Ethan moved to one of the conduits, examining it closely. "This isn't just sabotage. It's precision work. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing." The Council exchanged uneasy glances. "The Syndicate has advanced knowledge of our systems," Varys said. "But we lack the expertise to counter their interference." Ethan's brow furrowed as he studied the holographic projections Aura provided. The sabotage had created feedback loops that disrupted the energy flow, but the patterns reminded him of something he'd seen before, on their ship. "I think I can stabilize this," Ethan said, his confidence growing. "But I'll need to reroute power through some dormant conduits. It's risky, but it might work." Varys frowned. The dormant conduits have not been activated in centuries. If they fail, the core could collapse entirely. Ethan glanced at Lyra, who gave him a small nod. "We trust you," she said simply. Ethan took a deep breath, his hands moving deftly as he worked on the conduits. Sparks flew as he reconnected pathways, the core's glow fluctuating wildly. The room trembled, the unstable energy sending ripples through the air. Come on," Ethan muttered, his heart pounding. Finally, with one last adjustment, the core's light steadied, its pulses becoming rhythmic and calm. The trembling stopped. Ethan stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow. There, that should hold. The council watched in stunned silence as the core stabilized. Finally, Varys spoke, his tone softer. "You've done what we could not. For that, we owe you our thanks." Lyra placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, her expression filled with pride. "You've proven yourself once again, Ethan Cole." Ethan smiled, a mix of relief and pride swelling in his chest. "Just doing my job." But deep down, he knew this was more than a job. This was a step into a larger universe, and he was ready for whatever came next. Crisis and triumph. The core chamber hummed with a steady rhythm, its light casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. Ethan Cole stood amidst the glowing conduits, marveling at what he had accomplished. The Siren energy grid was stabilizing, but the work wasn't over. The council was impressed, but skepticism still lingered in some of their eyes. "Your solution is holding for now," Varys said, his voice measured. "But stability doesn't mean security. The Syndicate could strike again at any moment." Ethan frowned, wiping his hands on his shirt. "If they sabotage this once, they'll try again. We need to figure out how they're getting access." Lyra nodded in agreement. "Ethan's right. If we don't address the root cause, we're leaving Sirena vulnerable." Another counselor, the green-marked woman named Elira, stepped forward. "We've detected anomalous signals near the secondary conduits. We suspect they may be a backdoor the Syndicate is using to infiltrate the grid." Ethan's interest peaked. "Backdoor? Show me." Tracking the threat, Ethan, Lyra, and a small team of Siren engineers made their way through the sprawling network of tunnels beneath the city. The conduits pulsed softly, their glow lighting the path. Ore provided a map of the system, guiding them toward the suspected source of the anomaly. As they moved deeper, the air grew cooler, and the hum of the conduits became faint. The passage narrowed, and Ethan's steps slowed. He could feel a growing sense of unease, as if the tunnels themselves were watching. "We're close," Ore announced in his mind. "The signal source is within 100 meters." Suddenly, the soft hum of the conduits was interrupted by a sharp, irregular vibration. The lights flickered, and a high-pitched whine echoed through the tunnel. "What's that?" Ethan asked, gripping a nearby wall for balance. Lyra's hand hovered near the sleek weapon at her side. "A disruption. Be ready." They emerged into a larger chamber, where a cluster of conduits converged around a sleek alien device embedded in the floor. The device was pulsating erratically, sending waves of interference through the conduits. Strange glyphs hovered around it, shifting and rearranging like a living code. Ethan crouched down to examine it, his heart racing. "This isn't Siren tech," he muttered. "It's something else." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Syndicate. Sabotage uncovered." As Ethan studied the device, Ore provided a detailed analysis. "This device is designed to create instability in the energy flow, introducing feedback loops that disrupt the entire grid. It's also transmitting data, coordinates, and schematics. They're using this to destabilize the grid and spy on you," Ethan said, looking up at Lyra. "We need to shut it down." Before Lyra could respond, a low rumble echoed through the chamber. The device's pulsations quickened, and the conduits around it began to spark violently. "They've activated a failsafe," Ore warned. "The device will overload in approximately 5 minutes. Detonation could compromise the entire energy core." Ethan's blood ran cold. "We don't have time to remove it. I'll have to disarm it here." Lyra stepped closer, her expression firm. "We'll protect you. Do what you must." A race against time. Ethan dropped to his knees, his hands flying over the device. The glyphs around it shifted erratically, resisting his attempts to stabilize it. Ore guided him through the process, but the system was unlike anything he had encountered. Whoever built this knew what they were doing, Ethan muttered, sweat dripping down his temple. It's layered with fail-safes. Every time I disable one, another pops up. The device emitted a shrill whine, its glow intensifying. The conduits around it shuddered violently, sending sparks flying. Lyra and her team stood guard, their weapons drawn as if anticipating an ambush. 2 minutes, Aora warned. Ethan gritted his teeth, his focus narrowing. Come on, you piece of junk. Let me in. The glyphs shifted again, and Ethan found the main override sequence. It was a complex web of alien code, but Aora highlighted the weak points. His hands moved instinctively, cutting through layers of encryption until the device's core was exposed. 1 minute. Ethan reached for the final connection, his breath catching as the device emitted a high-pitched wail. His fingers hesitated for a fraction of a second before he yanked the connection free. The device went dark. The conduit stopped sparking, and the chamber fell silent. Ethan exhaled deeply, collapsing onto the floor. That was too close. Lyra extended a hand, helping him to his feet. You've done it again, Ethan Cole. Victory and revelation. Back in the council chamber, Ethan and Lyra presented the dismantled device. The council examined it closely, their expressions a mix of concern and admiration. This device confirms our worst fears, Varys said. The Syndicate's reach is deeper than we realized. Illyra stepped forward, her tone more optimistic. But thanks to Ethan, we now have the knowledge to counter their efforts. His adaptability and courage have proven invaluable. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, feeling both proud and awkward under their praise. It's a team effort, he said. And honestly, I've got more questions than answers. Who built that thing? And why go to so much trouble to sabotage Serana? Lyra nodded. These are questions we must investigate. But for now, we've stabilized our grid and eliminated a critical threat. That's no small victory. As the council dismissed the meeting, Varys approached Ethan. His stern expression softened, just slightly. You've earned our trust, human. Serana owes you a great debt. Ethan smiled faintly. Just doing my job. But as he left the chamber with Lyra, he couldn't shake the feeling that the Syndicate's actions were just the beginning. The galaxy was far more complex and dangerous than he had ever imagined. And he was right. A new horizon. The aftermath of Ethan's daring efforts left Serana with a sense of cautious optimism. The energy grid was stable once more, and the Syndicate's sabotage device had been neutralized. For the first time in months, the Siren Council could focus on rebuilding rather than crisis management. Yet for Ethan Cole, the sense of finality remained elusive. The farewell. Standing on the viewing platform overlooking Serana's crystalline city, Ethan couldn't help but marvel at the world he had helped save. The twin suns bathed the spires in golden light, casting long shadows that flickered like living art. Beside him, Commander Lyra stood silently, her presence both grounding and comforting. You've done more for my people than I could have asked, Lyra said, her voice softer than usual. And yet I suspect your heart still belongs to the stars. Ethan chuckled, leaning against the railing. I didn't know my heart belonged anywhere until now. But yeah, there's something about this whole galactic adventure thing that's hard to walk away from. Lyra turned to face him fully. There is more to be done. The Syndicate will not stop with this sabotage. Their ambitions are far-reaching, and their methods grow bolder. We will need allies in the days to come. Ethan met her gaze. And you're asking me to be one of those allies. I'm inviting you, Lyra said, a faint smile curving her lips. The choice is yours. A decision. Ethan stared at the bracelet on his wrist, its soft glow a constant reminder of the journey he had taken. He thought about New Nevada, his quiet life as a mechanic, and the stars he had spent years dreaming about. The people of Serana had shown him a universe larger than anything he had imagined, and he had proven to himself that he could rise to the challenge. I'm no diplomat, he said finally, and I'm definitely not a soldier. But if there's one thing I know how to do, it's fix things. Machines, systems, maybe even alliances. Lyra inclined her head, her expression unreadable but satisfied. That's all we need. New beginnings. Ethan spent the following days preparing for the next chapter of his journey. The Sarin Council formalized his role as a liaison between their people and humanity, granting him access to resources and training to better understand their advanced technology. Aura, his ever-present companion, continued to evolve, syncing seamlessly with Siren systems and offering insights that amazed even seasoned Sarin engineers. Before long, Ethan found himself aboard the Siren ship once more, the hum of its systems now familiar and comforting. As the vessel lifted off, he glanced down at Cyrano one last time, its twin suns reflecting off the crystalline landscape. "You're not going to miss this," one of Lyra's crewmates asked, her tone teasing. "Miss it," Ethan said with a grin. "I'm taking it with me. Every lesson, every moment. The stars are calling, and I'm ready to answer." Lyra, seated at the helm, glanced over her shoulder. "Then let's see where they take us." The horizon ahead. As the Siren ship ascended into the endless expanse of space, Ethan felt a sense of purpose he had never known. The Syndicate's threat loomed large, but so did the possibilities of discovery, unity, and adventure. For the first time, he wasn't just staring at the stars, he was among them. And as the ship surged forward into the unknown, Ethan Cole knew his story was only beginning. The Mechanic and the Cosmos. Far across the galaxy, Syndicate leaders studied the reports of their failed sabotage with cold determination. "The human," one of them growled, its alien voice filled with venom. "He's an anomaly. Unpredictable. Dangerous." A shadowy figure stepped forward, its presence commanding. "Then we'll have to account for him in our next plans. The Sirens won't be so fortunate next time." But Ethan wasn't worried about the next time. He was ready, armed with ingenuity, curiosity, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. For every threat the galaxy threw his way, Ethan Cole would find a way to fix it. After all, that's what he did best.